So welcome back again. It's another edition of Pitch Your Project. And today I'm here with a very popular person from Ghana, schooled in Greece, but I would not, you know, go deep into his profile. He'll do that by himself. And I hope that someone out there, particularly those pursuing masters or bachelors, will benefit from this project pitch. The project, which is a master's thesis or project, anyhow you call it, was presented somewhere last year. And I think it will be a great opportunity for Joel to also share on this platform for my network and for all those aspiring to take their masters and possibly go to the PhD. So welcome, Joel. And
Thank
I've
you.
mentioned your name anyhow, anyway. But do us the honor of briefly introducing yourself. Who are you? So for my viewers out there, would know you better.
Thank you so much, Joey. Thank you so much for having me. As you mentioned, I'm Joel Thumb. I come from Ghana originally, and I had my undergraduate studies in the University of Ghana, and that was where I met you in Ghana. And also from Ghana, I played for the Ghana national under 18 and under 20, and as a basketball player, and moved to Greece. I went to Nigeria also to play a little bit, and also moved to Greece. Played in Africa. Moved to Greece to further my master's education in the University of Italy, while also playing basketball semi-professionally in Greece. And yeah, so just won recently last year. We just won the championship to get promoted.
Wow.
So that's just on the part of my activities when it comes to playing, my playing career. But in terms of academics, I recently just finished my master's degree with the University of Thessaly, and I also worked with them as a research assistant
Yeah.
for the university in one of the refugee camps in Greece, where we did a few randomized control trials to be able to implement certain strategic psychological interventions to help these inmates who come from Africa to be able to control some cardiovascular risk markers and other things like that. So that is currently I'm still an Erasmus student waiting soon to start my internship or traineeship as a sports psychologist in one of the big sports institutions in Germany. So that's just the little about me just to start. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's amazing how you combine the professional, path with your educational ambition as well. It's no more an ambition because you are living it now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So for those who don't know, now you know Joel Thumb, a former professional basketball player, now plays semi-professional in Greece, at the same time working alongside as a psychologist. And I think this is where we come in. We'll zoom in straight. Recently, he completed University of what's the name?
Thessaly? Thessaly.
Thessaly, right?
Yeah.
In Greece. And he presented a project on a case study of Sport for Leadership Academy's program designed to develop and foster life skills, values, and positive youth development in Ghana, West Africa to be precise. And he'll take us through his research process. Of course, our interest is in the findings of the research and how that alone contributes to society. And I think that's the most important thing. Education is basically to bridge the gap in society. So most of our researches are often directed towards that angle. So first of all, Joel will be pitching his project. He's done that before, but let's see how he does that in a way that we can grasp and then learn something out of it. He'll do it under 15 minutes. On his blind side, he doesn't see the clock. Let's see how he does this. Joel, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you so much, Harry. Okay. So for the research, that is the case study with the Sports for Leadership Academy in West Africa, which was helped to find how they develop life skills, values, and positive youth development among the athletes. We all know sports basically it has it's a transformational tool to help in development. And based on my experience being able to come out from Ghana and having a few years of experience with working with certain academies in Ghana, there's a general issue or problem where you realize that many academies may always have the tendency to attach developing not just the physical skills of athletes, but the innate abilities of athletes when it comes to character, life skills, and development. But we don't really know the intentional focus that they attach to it. So, with this case study, it was just to investigate how the structured program within Slack specifically is able to address these parts or components of developing an athlete. So that was the primary objective of the study to be able to examine their character development program and the processes and the success that they've had for and the areas of improvement. So we look to find the benefits, the challenges they have, and also from the participants to be able to know what recommendations they can also give to improve the program. So basically the conceptualization was to use the positive youth development theory, which basically speaks that it's not only to focus on the deficits or the inefficiencies of an athlete, whereas developing life skills or values should always be on the fact that someone has a bad behavior or someone doesn't have a good behavior, but they should rather focus on rather building the person, nevertheless, even though that deficiency is there. So that was one of the theories that we used, but continuing further, the methodology that was used was a case study, a qualitative case study, as mentioned. So I had a few of the athletes because the academy is not so big, but they just recently started, I think 3 years ago. They had a character and development program with a previous foundation that they had, but currently they just decided to change the name into Slack, that's Sports Leadership Academy. So they haven't really got a lot of people that subscribe, but many people that were athletes who were part of the previous foundation were the same people and even new people that are subscribed. So we had about 10 athletes for the participants, and because of the general outlook to be able to see what exactly that they have, we had to involve coaches, the CEO, and also parents, some parents. So for the CEO, he's the main person and the main facilitator of the program. And we also had the coaches. We had 7 coaches, and we had 3 parents, because many parents didn't really pull their strings when we needed them for the research, but that will come into that. So continuing for the research itself, as I earlier mentioned, we have a lot of developmental programs when it comes to sports in Africa and even across the globe. A few just to mention is FIRST, which is in the United States of America, that is solely focused on tennis. And we have Indonesia, the Indonesian government, who have also involved or incorporated character development or education within educational program through sports. And also, they all tend to have related findings where they mention that it's very important and it's something that coaches even mention through research that was done in these various places. That is a high significance for development, holistic development of an athlete. So continuing with this, there were a few findings that we had, and one of the main findings, because we used the qualitative case study, we used a thematic analysis framework just to be able to know what the benefits, the challenges, and recommendations are from these participants participants. So athletes, it was found that many of them reported that the benefit was they experienced some psychological growth from the program, in the sense that because of the program and how it focuses not just on the outward part of the athletes, the physical part of developing the game, but they tend to have time to have lessons to practice applied applied practical positive psychology lessons and other things that these coaches tend to add or play in terms of their practice. They add a few things to it. So in terms of their lessons, there are things that they learn about discipline. There are things that they learn about honesty. There are things that they learn about developing yourself, teamwork, ethics, self-control, emotional control, respect. And one of the things that they mentioned was that the academy goes by the word dream, which means that the D stands for discipline, the R stands for resilience, the E stands for effort, the A stands for attitude, and the M stands for meekness. And believe me or not, these things are, or these values are core foundational transformational tools that are needed in every person, not even just athletes, but all walk life. So the main focus was to find an intentional way that they are able to build this. And based on the findings, which we are just about to go into, we realized that these were the things they really focused on and has produced certain results in the academy. So we continued, and the findings from the athlete also mentioned that they saw a value-based coaching from these coaches, because coaches were always focused on the values, and even the practices and the drills that they even have on the field all has these values in it. They also reported confidence and self-motivation, because in terms of you finding yourself disciplined, coming on time for practice, all these focus, they transfer it to the house, to transfer it to school, and they realize that there's some sort of confidence that they have because they now find themselves within a team where they all share the same focus. So all these things were part, and we also mentioned about team cohesion. So when it came to the challenges for the it cuts across through all the participants' responses. And the challenges they mentioned were the difficulty in funding, the challenges when it comes to funding, and also they needed stronger parental involvement. That was for the athletes. And also in terms of the recommendation from the athletes, they mentioned that if these programs could be extended to schools, and that's where I'm going to go to. If this program could be extended to schools, because character education or character development is very important for everyone, not just athletes. So going on with the coaches also mentioned similar positive responses or benefits of the program, which included the holistic athlete development, where they see the psychological part of the athlete being developed, because within the program, they tend to have mental skills training added with the character development program. Because if you are not disciplined and as an athlete, you can't continue practicing or following skills such as visualization or even self-talk, because it needs discipline to be able to accomplish all these things for you to see the best performance of yourself. So these were some of the benefits the coaches that also mentioned. They also mentioned the positive athlete behavioral and academic development, because they tend to not only focus on developing them physically, they tend to also follow up with the academic development. Because if you stay disciplined in every situation that you find yourself as an athlete, you end up seeing the transfer to your academic work. So parents also mentioned the same benefits of the program. But for the challenges that coaches mentioned, it was primarily also in terms of resources, the lack of resources and poor parental involvement. And the recommendation was also for the program to also be extended to schools. And coaches also mentioned the fact that they wish if they could get more logistics in terms of advising or teaching them more about the psychological component of training athletes because most of what they have is just a few knowledge that they received from maybe workshops and other webinars or seminars, but they requested for more improvement to know how they can teach and possibly inculcate or add it to their coaching practice. So parents also mentioned the same benefits. So these were the major findings that were found within the program. And in terms of even the recommendation, one thing I really wanted to speak about was the extension or the integration of it into the school program. Because you find even the school, I think recently it was mentioned on the news where one university in Nigeria has and it's a popular university, they have the motto of the school as character being the hallmark of the university, which tends to give the students success out of the walls of the school. And you recently had some issues of fraudsters coming out of that university, and you question yourself if this is the motto of the school, how come we have a different result coming out of the school? So these are part of the things that we realize that based on the recommendation these athletes, coaches, and even parents are given, that it can be integrated into the school system. It tends to give the light that, well, it is true because we start seeing many. I mean, it's all over the world. We see academies, we see people add values is something, discipline is this, like on their pages or on their advertisement boards or whatever they may call it. But what is the intentional focus given to it to be able to build this within their system? So this was the main focus, and seeing the recommendation being given by athletes, coaches, or the participants, it's very intriguing to know. So the character development program was basically one that we realized that Slack's um, advancement of it is very positive, and we've realized that it's fostering leadership in the young athletes in Ghana. I mean, there were a few limitations to the study, but it's not so huge that cannot be solved. But the few limitations I just mentioned was the fact that the mesh funding was a huge problem. It's a huge problem within the organization, and it's something that they're looking for other resources or other sources to be able to help them build that. But in terms of the future directions, I think it's possibly to look more into the parent side. I think recently I read a post on LinkedIn about Luka Doncic and other people or athletes mentioning that the joy behind sports is being lost, and there's a lot of pressure now. But when you look at it, I believe that institutionally there has to be a focus of where everybody comes on board, the core key players, which are coaches and parents, to start with, all have to come on board to be able to see different perspectives and how this joy can be restored, because athletes do not just want to stop having the joy that they have with the game, not because they want to, but there are many things that come up to it. So the character and development program is more innate, seeing how athletes can be built innately, because any issue that we see in the society starts from the inside, from athletes, and even research states from the first tee in America that it's a huge concern for 89%, almost 90% of parents, that character deficit is a very huge concern for them, not just only for their children who are doing sports, but generally. So with that, it's going to be a way where we can see the development of it when all key players come on board. So that was basically the research that I had, and I think I'll just end it there. Yeah.
Okay, so I beg your pardon, I muted it a little bit. Um, so that's it, exactly 15 minutes as I have it here. And you have it. That's Joel's um, project. And as you can see, he did his best to kind of like, bring it or crump it a little in a way that we can understand it. right? So his purpose is very simple, and as he outlined it, this is a project about positive youth development, if I get you right, isn't it?
Yeah,
And it has a primary goal, which is to examine SLACS. So you said SLACS is what?
Sports Leadership Academy.
Sports Leadership Academy. So that was your case
Yeah,
that you studied. So to examine SLAC's impact on character development and identify its success and areas for improvement, adopting a positive youth development lens. And as he mentioned, he tried as much as possible to break positive youth development. Some adopts a reductionist approach or a deficit approach, anyhow you call it, that focuses solely on the outcomes, not taking into consideration the social structures and the programs itself, as well as how the program are implemented. And so I wouldn't say much. It's for the viewers to see. You can comment below your takeaway from this presentation or pitch. But my question is, um, what would you have done differently given a chance to redo this whole research?
that's a great question. So what I would have done different was possibly be so for the coaches, I happened to meet them personally to be able to interview them when I went to Ghana last 2 years, 2023. But for the athletes and the parents, I couldn't. But what I would have done differently was to be able to be there for the parents, most especially to be able to interview them face to face,
Okay.
because there are few limitations when you have to do it online with parents, because the you might not get the organic response that you may need compared to meeting them in person. So what I would have done differently was to find time when Slack is having a parent meeting, or maybe possibly be there in person just to meet these parents and interview them, and also reach out to more parents, because we couldn't reach out to a lot of them, but those we reached out to, just a few also responded. So parents' response was very crucial in this research, and I wanted to know more about from the parent side, because they are able to experience what these athletes go through, or the transfer of these values and life skills that they teach them within the academy, in the home, and even in school. Yeah. So that's what I would have done differently.
Yes, so for the joy of sports, sometimes competitive sports takes away the joy that, athletes used to play the sport. And then my next question is, this is a case study. It's case studies are
Mm.
usually very, small sample. It's focusing on one thing. And often the difficulty is to generalize it, because what works for Derek may not work for Joel. What works for Joel may not work for Derek, vice versa, like that. So um, and I noticed you talk about the relevance of the findings to other organizations or alike. Um, how do you think um, the research findings will be beneficial for similar organizations, given the fact that, one of the challenges for case study um, programs or research?
Great. Thank you for that question also. So initially, just like I mentioned, there are few organizations that are having programs or focusing on character development, or let me say life skills also. And as I mentioned, two of them outside Africa is the first, in the United States of America. They focus, or they use tennis more as the sport or the tool to
Okay.
be able to teach that. And they have a program also. And we have Indonesia, but that one was more implemented by the government. And within Africa, we have only one academy that is known, is Right to Dream. Right to Dream
Yeah.
in Egypt and in Ghana. They also focus on character development. So the founder himself actually came from Right to Dream. he started his work with Right to Dream. So based on the concept he was able to draw from Right to Dream as their character development coach, he was able to blend that and transfer it into his own organization. So with that, it tells us that, and it greatly enlightens us to let us know that if he's been able to do that, coming from Right to Dream, to be able to build what he has now and even making it more better and a more intentional focus, it tells us that it's something that can be implemented because, as you mentioned, case studies cannot be so much generalized because that cannot work. But when you have the foundational principles in place or the core principles in place based on the structure that one has laid, you
Yeah.
don't you don't necessarily have to implement it for years. But because what, let's say for instance, if I have an academy that is a basketball team, and maybe you have an academy that is an academy or a sports team that is maybe of tennis or different sports like soccer and everything. We have different athletes, we have different goals that these sports come with. So you just have to first know what are the ins and outs of your team. What is the needs of your team? What do I see within this team that needs to be really focused on? So in terms of your goals for your team, if it's just a team, a sports team, you don't necessarily have to have a program. You just have to have maybe certain key features that you can just add within your
Yeah.
training as a coach. But as a development program or as an academy, you're
Yeah.
developing athletes from a core foundation. So based on that, you can have a program. So what works for another program, you just have to see what they have, look at the blueprint, check, factor in one or two parts that can be added to yours, looking at what the needs of these athletes are and implement that. So yeah,
Yes, so that's great. I was expecting to hear the word transfer, which is
yeah,
transferability, usually
yeah,
connect with case study that much. Like I mentioned, I don't want to be very academic and delve into these issues.
yeah,
That would make it a little bit boring for people who are trying to venture this field. I beg your pardon, I can only do that when probably I'm supervising my students or what have you. But this is a project that's already presented. I wouldn't take much time. What are your final words? We're running out of time.
yeah. Thank you so much for the time and opportunity to be here to present this work. And I know for me, it's just to make sure that sports is developed holistically, and there's a dimension to it where in terms of psychological development. It's not just the mental skills that we have, but even for agents, for coaches, for sports management, managers, administrators, everyone needs a development in terms of character. And that is a deficit that we have because athletes that are growing up from a young age, they will definitely, not everyone is going to play basketball, not everyone is going to play soccer, but they're going to find themselves in different positions as leaders. And there needs to be a strong, holistic development for every athlete. So that's my last take. Yeah.
So that's fantastic. Joel, it's great to have you here and also picture presenting your project. And I hope people out there benefits from this. It's an interesting and endeavor in a sense that I've supervised so many students I cannot count. And I realize that sometimes the research process in itself is very engaging and very tiring. And so it's great to see those who have done it before so we can learn from it. It's not just about the findings, as you noticed, it's about noticing a problem or a gap and then, conceptualize. That's where the thinking comes in. You have to sit down, conceptualize, and then know what questions you're going to address, which lenses you're going to use to address the questions or analyze it further, which research design you want to use, and then, the results, discussions, and findings. Basically, that's the research process. It doesn't end there. You also have to share and present your research on different platforms so people can, be aware of new knowledge or new things out there. Usually we just shelve our research, and I think it's not the best. Whether bachelor's, whether master's, is always great to share with a wider audience. So something come and learn out of it. On that note, thank you so much, Joel. And I think we'll
Thank
be
you so
wrapping
much.
up. And I look forward for the next person coming on this platform. Feel free to send me a message if you want to share your research project or pitch to a wider audience. On that sense, see you.
See
And
you.
we talk in Spanish, they say adios. I hope I'm not wrong. Yeah. In Norwegian, we say ha there, and then in English, bye bye.
Bye.
And wherever you find yourself, I look forward to joining you again, or you'll join this program next in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.